So good evening. It's February 14th, 2024. My name is Jeff Schwartz, and we're here with the Culver City Democratic Club's special panel, Meet the Press, with local journalists. We have Judith Martin-Straw from the Culver City Crossroads, Todd Flora from Westside Voice, and Brett Callwood from the Culver City News and also LA Weekly. So thank you all for spending your Valentine's Day with us. Part of my motivation for inviting you all tonight is that I think we are on the verge of an absolutely insane general election. And I think people are going to be, just swamped with all sorts of crazy information from unregulated campaign spending by PACs and billionaires, and every sort of madness on social media, from like Russian bot farms to just local cranks and hoaxes and rumors and AI and goodness, I can only imagine. So the press is, essential to creating this sort of shared fact-based universe, which is essential to democracy. And I just thought it would be great to for the community to get to know y'all a little better and vice versa. So I'm happy to have this platform to do that. So I prepared 3 questions, which I shared with you in advance, and we'll just go around and I'll ask you those, and then we'll open it up for questions from our members.
Great.
So thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And full disclosure, Judith and I go way back. We used to work at a bookstore together. And all the folks have published my writing in various forms, but I've never seen Todd or Brett until tonight. So that's kind of fun too. So my first question is just to describe your publication and its mission and its business model. So maybe I'll just start with Judith, because she's on my right in the window that I have.
Okay, well, my publication is online. We're 5 days a week. We just do local news only. So we stop at the borders of Culver City. Mission statement is really just to connect with the community. The slogan that we have online is where the people meet the city. But the idea was always to give people a place where they could just click through immediately and get connected. Here's the performance venue, here's the tickets, this is the meeting, these are the people you talk to about this. So, we could go on about intellectual theories of intersectionality, but that's why it's called Crossroads. So business model is sole owner, although we are in the process of transitioning to be a nonprofit. I now have an associate publisher who is working with me, and she has some expertise in that area. So hopefully before the election, but certainly before the end of the year, we'll have all the pegs turned and all the everything in the right tune for that. So
awesome. Brett, tell me about the Culver City News.
Okay, so the Culver City News, it's a weekly, online and in print, still in print. Thank God. It's under an umbrella called Integrity News. So I also write for the Gardena Valley News, which is another one of the sister papers. In terms of the business model, I think it's telling that I'm not part of the ownership or part of the publishers group or anything like that. So I don't deliberately have anything to do with the business model. I still believe in that separation of church and state, and maybe naively, I hope not. But I don't have anything to do with the business model, and I hope tells you what you need to know about the editorial, that we don't have any cross with advertising. And the mission statement, I get, like Judith just said, all local, covering as much as we can with a bare bone staff.
So just to pop in, I don't know if Brett knows, I was the editor of the Culver City News in 2009.
Okay, so, I didn't.
Yeah.
And
Judith, how long has Culver City Crossroads been around?
15 years. We just started our
Okay.
15th year. So from December of 2009 till to the present. So
Got it.
okay, and Todd, Westside Voice.
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, hi, Culver City Democrats. Thank you so much for having me. This was a welcome invitation because I plan on getting a little bit more grassroots this year and kind of taking a Democratic club's tour if I can, and if they'll have me. I started Westside Voice after a bit of a tearful epiphany with in front of my wife in 2020. And I come from the public and government affairs world for 25 years. And like a lot of people in 2020, I was out of work, and I turned to my wife one day. It was a Monday. My eyes a little watery, and I said, "Why do I keep chasing these jobs when all I really, really love doing is writing?" And she calmly sort of walked me off the ledge and said, "Well, maybe we should get you into a writing program." Now, this is like the third week of September in 2020. Classes at UCLA Extension for their certificate in journalism program are starting in like 48 or 72 hours. So I enrolled in the program. I fell in love with learning about journalism. I've always loved writing. I'm not bad at it. I don't know, you guys tell me. And then in 2021, after a friend that worked at the Washington Post turned me on to a lot of these nonprofit state capital-based websites, like we have Cal Matters in California. There's the Texas Tribune, the Min Post in St. Paul, that they sort of kind of hyper locally report on state government news. I thought, well, I'd love to do something like that and have a hyper local site for just the West Side. So I put up a GoFundMe that paid for the development of the website. I worked throughout 2021 with a brand manager and in setting these things up and his web team. And on May 2nd of 2022, we launched our first spate of news on Westside Voice, and it was just me for a good stretch. But I've got 6 young people working for me now. I'm supposed to talk about our business model, correct?
yes.
My business plan is in 3 parts. The first one was the GoFundMe with a little bit of 401k money that I've been living on anyway thrown in. And the next leap is, where's that magical VC or big rich funder? I don't know if they're ever going to show up, or I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to find them. But that was supposed to propel us toward advertising for enough readership that we can then put up a paywall and go to a subscription model. But I'm several thousand readers away a day from being able to do that. I'm going to put our in the chat. I'm going to put our the link to our vision, mission, and values for you all to see, and it also, as a result, gives you the site to the link to the site itself as well, which is westsidevoicela.com. And and just this week, we are now accepting donations. So if you're so moved and want to support good local news, because local news is tough, it's not tax deductible because I did not go the nonprofit route that Judith is now pursuing. But if you feel so moved, we're taking one-time or monthly sustainer donations. And I have to tell you, when we write about Culver City, my Google Analytics tells me Culver City shows up. I live in Santa Monica. I was politically active here for many, many, many years. And I was a member of the Rent Control Board, an elected member for 8 years. And I have to beg my Santa Monica activist community and my friends in Santa Monicans for Renters' Rights to read my articles, but Culver City shows up. So thank you for that, for those of you that have been reading, and for some of you who I've even met. I'm taking it a little long form, I apologize, but there was something I did want to get in there, which was I've got young people working for me now. We're trying to churn out more news. But we're also conducting a year-long social media ad buying campaign to try to put more eyes on the site. So if some of you may have even seen ads for Westside Voice. So we're very small. We're really still trying to find our readership, but hopefully we'll be growing and hopefully we'll be able to do this for a while.
Just a brief sidebar. Todd, are you aware? Are you a member of Lion, local independent online news?
No.
They're a national guild. We'll talk later. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thanks. I should also mention Christian May-Suzuki is with us, formerly a writer for the news and now part of Todd's team, I believe.
Yeah, I can't see everybody, but Christian, hello. Christian's my best writer. He used to work for Brett and now has come on and is doing terrific work for me while he's also in grad school.
Yeah, I'm really happy he asked to join us, and I hope he'll speak up during the question period later.
He never. We had. I think we had a week crossover.
Oh, okay.
We had a couple of meetings together, but it was good to get to know him a little bit.
It is a small world after all. Yeah.
So Todd kind of already covered most of my second question, which was to ask a little bit about yourselves. What in your background brought you to this work? So let me go to Brett first.
I've been writing since 1999. Initially, it was all entertainment journalism. And then, so I moved from England to Detroit in 2008, beginning of 2008. I'd written books about two Detroit bands, the MC5 and Iggy and the Stooges. And it had taken me to Detroit for research. And I really liked the place. I found it inspiring to write. To writing. So I went there and wrote for their alternative weekly, the Metro Times, and eventually became their music editor. But in between, I found myself taking jobs to survive, and in daily newspapers, and I wrote for the Detroit Free Press and Crane's Detroit Business, and did a few things, just for work. But when I say that, I did it with the intention of doing it just for work, for a paid gig, but found myself really enjoying writing about news, writing about business. And then we moved west. I was 2 years in Colorado, and I wrote for the daily newspaper there called the Longmont Times Call, which was part of the Daily Camera, the Denver daily newspaper family, as well as their alternative weekly, the Denver Westward. And then just 2 years, Denver wasn't really for me and my family, so we kept coming west, and then we found ourselves here. So now I balance a lot of different things. I write for, like I say, the Gardena Valley News as well as the Culver City News. You mentioned the LA Weekly. I'm the music editor there, but I've written regularly about news for the LA Weekly too, which kind of suits my own political leaning with the Culver City News and the Gardena Valley News. When I write about news, I have to keep my biases to myself. With the LA Weekly, I don't. It's columnist writing. So that's kind of fun. And I also, not relevant to this, but I'm also an associate editor at Music Connection magazine over in Glendale. So still balancing entertainment writing, even for the Culver City News, as you mentioned. I write about music every week. I also write the food reviews, so I'm doing it all. But that's kind of the fun nowadays, isn't it? I mean, if there's anything, a silver lining that has come from especially the post-COVID world and working remotely and learning these new skills, things that we can do, like what we're doing right now. All this is possible Same with the city council meetings, that they learned what is possible. But also everyone's wearing so many hats nowadays. And there is some fun to be had with that. I don't consider myself a food writer, but I can write about food and pen a word together and a sentence together. And yeah, so I'm personally finding that balance fun of news, music, and everything else. And of course, I'm editing everybody else's work in the process. And the Culver City News is basically me and Gary Kahatsu. That's what the editorial is. I'm sure you all know Gary. He's a treasure, and so he's still keeping it all together, and that's what it is. That's what the Culver City News is, and the Gardena Valley News. Did I answer the question? It was a long-winded answer.
I think so. It's yeah. Judith, how did you come to be a journalist?
Well, it was kind of a series of different things. I did journalism in school, not really so much in high school, but in junior high school. And I had started a paper when I was in grade school. So it was just one of those things that I always thought was a fun thing to do. When I was living in Venice in the 90s, it was my good fortune to write for the Free Venice Beachhead, which is, as I say, local journalism and politics is a full contact sport. So we were a volunteer collective. And so we got together and we, edited each other's stuff and talked about this and that. I really learned a lot. I got to work with some great people there who had some terrific experience, and it was a lot of fun. I was also writing a lot of poetry. I did Beyond Baroque workshops and that sort of thing. So for a lot of my time in Venice, I was publishing more poetry than I was journalism. But then, jump cut 10 years later, I was in Culver City, and I had 2 little kids, and I was getting divorced, and I needed a job, and I had been writing for websites, and I found an ad for Culver City News, and I thought, oh, this was a website, but then no, it turned out it was the paper that was in my driveway every Thursday, and I ended up getting hired there. So Hart to Brett, I know how hard they work you, and it's really a tough job. I have often told people it's a terrible, terrible job, but it was a great boot camp, and I learned a lot. And yeah, hats off to Gary. He's a terrific editor who is also stretched way too thin and not at all appreciated for his skill set. My frustration, just a little asterisk, but my frustration with the news is that they have the resources to be a much better newspaper, and they choose not to use those resources in that way. So I really appreciate the work that gets done over there. So when I parted company with the news, which will someday be a play or a rom-com or something like that, the story that I tell is I got fired at 10:30 in the morning, and at 1 o'clock that afternoon, I was online with my own masthead, because nobody, I mean, like, you have an audience, why would you let this go? You already know what you're doing. And this was, as it was easier and easier to just, set up shop online and publish things that way. So kind of took off running and has been going since then. I've had columnists and writers over the years. I've had some terrific interns. I've worked with some great people in high school and college who went on to good things. But I'm kind of my only permanent full-time employee. So as I say, turning it around to being a nonprofit, stretching it out a little bit more that way. And I'm as I was in Venice, I mean, I'm really passionate about news connecting to community, because, and this was when I first started as the editor at the Culver City News, this was the comment I heard from people all the time that truly surprised me. People were delighted that there was somebody local who was writing this paper, who was now in charge of the local news, because they felt like it had just been, shipped out, and it had in a lot of ways. So that connection of, actually being present in the scene. Sometimes I get, there is occasionally the idea that you're just too close to the story, or you don't have a perspective, or you can't be unbiased. But I do my reportage in total AP style book. I mean, there is a timestamp. Here's the frame. Here's the room. This is who said what. So it's all very, journalistically orthodox. It's really correct. Now, when I write an editorial, that's my voice. I can just completely let fly. But I like having a platform that's available to everybody. And I try to be really, really, open and fair about that. So it should be something that, local news should be something that everybody can pick up and, maybe disagree about, but you should, it would be great for everybody to have the same basic background. And I think it's really important. It could be, it would be ideal to have like a really healthy ecosystem of lots of different papers, lots of different online venues, lots of different voices, because when people just get their information off of Facebook or Nextdoor, again, that's what we're looking at with the crazies coming up with the election stuff. And it's, journalism is the antidote for disinformation. So, yeah, I think that answers the question. Yeah.
Thanks. Todd, you kind of already gave us your origin story.
Well, I did. I've worked in every sector. My first job coming out of grad school I was the body man for then Lieutenant Governor Gray Davis. A body man is like, for those of you who are West Wing fans, and I wouldn't believe it if almost all of you weren't. I was like Charlie on the West Wing. So I went everywhere with Lieutenant Governor Davis and did speech prep in the car and things like that. But I've worked for single issue nonprofits. In fact, I worked for something back in 2002 called the California Clean Money Campaign. And our office back then was in the Helms Bakery. I worked in the private sector. I worked for a PR firm where I called reporters. I worked for IBM for 6 years where I did corporate philanthropy and congressional relations. But as I explained, I just sort of had this epiphany of starting a second career at age, what was I then, 50. And let's hope we can make a go of it. But I did want to say something because Judith mentioned editorials. This is where I got sidetracked earlier and forgot to come back to it. We would really love your financial support. The reason it's not tax deductible, I had to think long and hard. It was a several month long decision, research and whatnot. We'd probably be a lot better off right now if we went the nonprofit route, but because there's a lot of foundations that give to nonprofit media and et cetera, and your tax donations, your donations would have been tax deductible, which would have probably attracted more. But I said to myself, if I'm going to leave local politics and government, I resigned all of my, Sheila Kuehl had appointed me to the County Small Business Commission. I was on the Housing Commission. After I was on the Rent Control Board in Santa Monica, I had to resign them all. I said, if I'm going to leave local politics and government, I still want to have an influence. And I want to be able to do editorials and endorsements. And so we write editorials and endorsements. Now, our news, we write the news, as Judith said, what happened, who said what. Our editorials and endorsements are progressive. And I wanted to be able to do that. And you can only do that if you go the for-profit route. Nonprofits can only invite guest commentary. That's the most they can do. So that's why I did that. And I just wanted to make a point about that.
Yeah, thanks. All right. So the last thing that I wanted to ask about is the sort of process of how you decide what to write, how quickly you have to turn it around, and what the sort of fact checking and editorial is. I'll confess, that a lot of what I produce is in the academic publishing world where things, can take years. And I feel like you guys get it done in hours. So I want to hear let me go to Todd first.
Yeah, so I started out because remember, I was inspired by these state government nonprofit sites who cover and watchdog state government at the state capitol level. Another one I forgot to mention is Mississippi Today, which is pretty interesting because they've got a very diverse newsroom and they're in Mississippi. And it's got to be tough to, I don't know, probably be objective there. But anyway, so I thought just at the start, I was just going to do local government, city of LA and the West Side cities. And that's mostly what we do. We cover the Board of Supervisors. There's an article about something they did this week today. Yesterday, we endorsed Measure HLA for the city of Los Angeles. Christian was nice enough to put up a link for you all. Thanks, Christian. And but we've added a partnership with one of my student buddies at UCLA Extension. She was already an entertainment journalist, and she works for a group that does clips that talk to A-list stars of movies or TV shows that have come out. So we occasionally put up those interviews. We've got someone writing about culture now, named Madeline, and she's doing some film reviews. She's doing she did a restaurant, she did a comedy club review. She's going to write about the business of entertainment. Christian's one of my local government writers. We most of what you're going to see in there is local government. We're trying other things, and our latest experiment is high school sports and some of UCLA and LMU sports in there, because remember, it's the West Side. So we're trying a little bit of high school sports to make the kids heroes in their own headlines, and get kind of the school community to hopefully read us if they're not into local government. So we'll see how that goes. I did want to say, we are beyond Culver City. We are the Westside Voice, and I wanted to let you all know what the parameters are. You can read about them on the site, but we're pretty generous about our definition of the West Side. We say Hollywood to Santa Monica, Bel Air down to LAX. It's a big area. It's over 600,000 people. And the reason we consider Hollywood part of the West Side is one of the biggest, I think, misnomers. One of the biggest I'll just say culturally insensitive thing a lot of West Siders do is they call downtown the East Side. East LA is the East Side. Downtown's the middle. So we think the West Side is bigger than just Santa Monica to the 405. Certainly a lot bigger than that. So just wanted to throw that in there.
That's a very controversial topic, the definition. So Brett, tell us about your process.
Okay, I like I mentioned earlier that I write about food, I write about music, and again that usually alternates between Boulevard and cinema. It's important just to make sure that the readers know what's going on in the nightlife. And occasionally the Culver Hotel as well also has jazz. But they tend to have the same 5 on rotation each week. So it's been a while, but and then we have Shari Barrett writes about theatre for us, and Steve Finley covers the high school sports. So that's the regular columns outside of the news. In terms of the news, there's no great tricks. It's a building up what they used to call the Rolodex, and is now just all on my phone of contacts, with the police, with everybody on the local council, with the school board, and just making sure that I'm on top of everything, that I'm keeping regular contact, that people know who I am, that people want to come to me with a story, that they trust me with a story, and then of course making sure I attend those virtual meetings, occasionally in person too, but them being virtual is nice because you can record it, you can, it makes it much easier. So between all and the school board meetings and all that stuff, so between all of that, I'm able to collect enough news in terms, and then the rest of it is just how quickly can I get it out? How quickly can I get it to Gary? He edits my work, I edit his. We have to be very diligent because the days of having teams of fact checkers and proofreaders, fortunately, are behind us on our budget at least. But I think even the LA Times would say they don't have the team they used to have. So yeah. So we just have to be very, very diligent, edit each other's work and check it twice like Santa, and make sure that it's as accurate as possible when it gets out, and yeah, it's speed and accuracy is the name of the game now. I think that's all I got.
Yeah. Good advice, Judith.
Yeah, I just want to say again, in all kindness, Brett, when I was the news, we were 28 pages long every week, and I didn't have a copy editor or proofreader. I mean, like those things don't happen at that company. Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, just to it is the process. You know, you go with the council meetings, you go with the school board meetings, you know, you go with the other activities that are coming around. You know, keeping in touch with things like the PTA and Academy of Visual and Performing Arts, you know, all of that sort of stuff that's local. We don't do sports. And part of that is because it's an incredible amount of work. I mean, you really have to have somebody at the game who knows how to write in that style, who knows how to do those sort of photographs. It's an art form unto itself. And that's one that I just, you know, I don't have the bandwidth, as they say. Um, so keeping things, you know, kind of fresh and in front of folks. I used to try to do the council as one article. And of course, most of those meetings are just way too long. You have to break it into pieces. So taking it, you know, like one bit at a time or one particular topic at a time. And it's just a blessing that we have those videos to check in with, because you got to get that quote exact. Because if that's not the sentence that came out of someone's face, they can say, hey, here's the tape. This is the sentence that came out of their face. So, you know, really getting those quotes exactly on target. And it's just kind of, you know, you hear from readers of what they're interested in, what they're focused about. Culver City is parochial in all the best and all the worst ways. We love Culver City, and it's just, you know, there's a lot of circular, you know, relationships, and in a good way. I don't mean that in any negativity, but you know, things, the fundraisers and again, the school activities, that sort of stuff. The community calendar is already pretty set as far as the council. I mean, for us, in terms of covering politics, the council is the most important thing. But you know, there's other pieces that fill in with that. So I'm very passionate about supporting the arts. I think it's really important that people know. And we have a huge cultural affairs committee. We're giving away money all the time. We have Culver Arts Foundation. I mean, there's always some, you know, new artwork coming up, or there's a dance performance, or there's you know, the symphony. I mean, all of that. And I really love to get people connected into those things, because again, that's where people meet and hang out, and that's where culture gets created. That's the yeast in the dough, so to speak. So it's it does stay pretty steady. And again, as you said in our introduction, we're coming into an election year, and you can already feel, you know, the gears shifting, and people are getting a little energetic, you know, a little enthusiastic about what's going on. So it always creates a real, you know, boom in our readership and a lot of exchange. So I see that as a good thing. But as I said before, journalism really is a very important antidote to disinformation, and, you know, making sure that people have actual facts about, you know, what decisions are being presented to us. I think is just part of the. I mean, I think both Todd and Brett, you know, have said that journalism is fun. I mean, this is a fun thing to do, but it's also really kind of a responsibility, and you sort of have to have it as a vocation, or you're not going to hang with it. It's a lot of work for, you know, for what we get back, but I think we get a lot back in other ways.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate all three of you answering those questions for me. And now let me open up the floor to our members. If anyone wants to ask our guests anything related to their work, please raise your Zoom hands.
Pete had a question.
Okay, great. I see Suzanne De Benedettis, and then Pete Rockwell, and then Disa. Okay, so Suzanne, please go ahead. Hello, Suzanne.
We can't hear you. Oh, now we can.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
I wanted to, first of all, commend Judith Martin-Straw. I can't believe it's 15 years, Judith, and I am just pleased with the beautiful way this online paper has been growing. I used to get the Culver City News when they dropped it at my front gate, but Northgate Street doesn't get it anymore. And it's sad to see that a lot of people, it sits in their gutter. So Culver City News might perhaps want to think of doing, well, you are online already. I just need to pay attention. But Todd, welcome to the news cycle. I get the Google, in my Google feed. I'm not getting Westside Voice yet. I'm getting Cal Matters and a bunch of others. So I will have to see about including you also. I want to thank you,
Thank
Jeff,
you.
for making this available. And I was just wondering for the journalists, is there any way of doing a fact check column when some egregious things are happening, whether on the local or the, you know, all the way through the state to national level? Just something I'm throwing out for your consideration.
How do you mean?
Okay.
I'm just curious to elaborate. Do you mean fact checking things that people in the public eye, such as politicians, are saying, or fact checking journalists?
Published both by the elected officials, but also by the spin that some writers can be putting on things.
You know, I think, Suzanne, the way that all of us probably focus on that is simply by, you know, again, making sure that our quotes are correct and knowing that our numbers are right, our information is correct. It's we have such a broad universe at this point of people commenting on things. I don't know that there's any way to just, you know, keep a running tally of,
Yeah.
you know, this is the actual fact on this situation. I can, you know, because I've been doing this for so long, I mean, often I will, you know, try to do a search engine on something that's a fact, or look up something that's a connecting point, and it will take me back to Crossroads. I mean, we've written a lot about the oil field, you know, over 15 years. So when I'm just going back to my own information for my own information, I could go into government stuff, but it's just, I think it speaks to you as a good consumer of journalism, and that you would know where to look to find accurate information. I think we're all doing what we can to make sure our facts are correct, but you can't reach out and, you know, touch everybody that you say, no, that's your numbers are wrong, or that's not the right attitude for that. So yeah.
I completely agree. We do the best that we can to make sure we're doing the best, most accurate reporting we can. It's a lot of voices to have to aggregate. I will say I agree with you, Suzanne. If your concern is misinformation, you thought 2016 and 2020 were bad, you know.
Buckle up.
Yeah. But you know, we try to call things out when we see them. You know, in my our endorsement of measure LA City Measure HLA yesterday, we pointed out that something that we believe the Measure HLA campaign on, which is that the county city administrative officer's estimate of the total cost is just based on incorrect assumptions. That office is assuming that Measure HLA mandates sidewalk repairs, and so they included that in their estimated cost estimate. It doesn't. So we try to do it as we go, but we can't be everywhere. I hear you. I wish you know, there was a polyfact and whatnot for just the West Side cities.
Yeah, I agree with both. We make sure our stories are accurate, and it seems like it would be opening up a can of worms to have a column fact checking other journalists, and honestly not very helpful. Like I think ultimately, make sure our own stories are accurate, and you know, if we feel like a public figure, and again, we're like you guys, we're hyper local, so I'm not going to be writing or fact checking Trump, for example, in a story in the Culver City News.
You
So
wouldn't get any sleep.
exactly.
I think, Todd, you hit it on the head there, that I guess it takes kind of making judgments at times where it's so egregious, this HLA thing, that you need to point it out because, again, it's going to be impossible to fact check everything at a hyper local level. But when things are flying in the face of fact, that will help people exposing that.
Mhm.
Well, and this speaks to the importance of, we're talking about wearing a lot of hats, that Todd has a background in government, that he knows where to look for this sort of stuff. That is where it's very good for journalism that people, again, just have a lot of cross-pollination. Somebody with a different vision is going to see things that you won't see. So.
Thanks. Did I hear Pete Rockwell had a question?
I think
Pete,
Christian, I just wanted to mention Christian said that he'd like to answer it too. So I'd be interested to
Oh
hear.
yes. Well, let me add Christian to the mix here. Let me see if I can.
Hey guys, can you all hear me?
Hey, Christian.
Yes.
Hi.
Hey, good to meet
My star.
Hi guys. Great to be here. So my name is Christian. I work with the with Todd at the Westside Voice. And I just wanted to really quickly answer because I think it's a very important sort of topic. I think it's a thing that people are concerned about. I think one of the big things that's important is not taking things that are said for granted for anybody, whether it be a politician or another journalist in another paper. And while we can't necessarily go around fact checking everybody and pointing out every time someone says something wrong, what we can do is do the necessary research to make sure that we understand what we need to do, what's important in the story, and we make sure we have all of our facts correct. So when it comes to a consumer and they're looking through these different papers and they see that one paper or one publication is more opinionated and has more strong opinionated facts, and the other one has other facts backed up with research and documents and other things like that, slowly that paper's credibility or that publication's credibility is built up. And so when you start looking at that over a more consistent basis, then you will be able to sort of distinguish yourself and make yourself the one that people go to, as opposed to essentially trying to pick on everybody that's wrong or call everybody out that's wrong. So it's really about maintaining your own accuracy and being confident in your own research, as opposed to trying to point out every little thing. And if you're talking about fact checking, politicians on a larger scale, when it comes to talking, similar to the way that some of these national media outlets were scrutinizing Trump, those things can take a significant amount of resources separately from other reporting, not just on a reporting side, but on a digital side, on setting it like up a separate section on the website, getting all of that aesthetically looking, pleasing, making sure everything works. That can take a great deal of time. That can take other staff members of other expertises, and I'm not necessarily sure that, at least us personally, have the resources to do that at this point. So when it comes to that type of fact checking column, it's more about the resources and time more than anything else.
Great, thanks.
We're all, because of the nature of the business, we are all essentially relying on other people's information, but we also have to have, the extra resources to look at that, so hopefully we're all, supportive of each other, but you got to look.
Yeah, so I have five more questions queued up in 12 minutes. So let's see what we can do. So Pete Rockwell.
Yeah, thanks. My question was just if you guys knew about our newsletter that comes out the first of every month, and let you know that it's on our website. And I think Leah put the link to the page where you can get the back newsletters in the chat. So that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
very
always
much.
very well written.
Pete is our newsletter editor and also a old-time typesetter.
A lost art.
Disa Lindgren, please go ahead. Thanks for waiting.
I'd just be interested in hearing whatever you'd be willing to say or share about the impact of social media on news and journalism. I'm along with many people, I'm very disheartened by the loss of so many newspapers. It's just very distressing, and so I really appreciate that we have local news sources, and but I feel like that's a really important thing now, social media, and I'd just be interested to hear what you have to say.
It's not just social media, it's the internet. We're still the media is still trying to figure out how to work with the internet more than 2 decades after the internet came in, and certainly how to monetize it. How to and again, I have nothing to do with advertising, very deliberately. I don't know. I could barely tell you who advertises. I don't want to know. I don't want it to affect my work at all. People advertise whatever. But I do know that it's how the money comes in, and it's important that people are doing that, just not me. But how figuring out how to monetize the internet is the big thing. Social media is just another part of that. It's vital. It's important. Every story I publish, not just with the Culver City News, but everywhere, I seed it, meaning I make sure that it's on every social media account, @ed and hashtagged and everything. That's how we seed stories. We share it. We make sure, these horrible words like going viral, but that's what we're aiming for. And really it's just another version of what it always was, which is getting as many people to look at it as possible. But again,
I don't know if there's any way to look at the data on this, but for a long time, my habit has been, it really challenges me when I go online and I see people saying, does anyone know? Does anyone have any information? Did anybody hear? Is there any, do you not, just this constant like reaching out for news. And like 7 times out of 10, it's a piece that I've published, and I'll just copy and paste the link into the chat for Facebook or Twitter or whatever, that, yes, here, I know, here's information, it's news, it's journalism, go there. I couldn't tell you how many actual subscribers or longtime readers I get from this process. But I do know that, once you share it to a direct question, you'll get a lot of hits. It's just to agree with what Brett was saying, it's called seeding. It's just a part of the process to make sure that this gets seen in as many places as possible, and spread the good news. The more often you repeat the truth, the better chance you have of people coming to you with the question directly next time. So
yeah,
if your question is has social, I'm sorry, you go ahead. I'll take time.
No, but if you're on that continuing thought, I don't want to stop it. I can go in a second.
I was just gonna say, if the question is specifically about social media and if it's damaging, Lisa, I think it's
not damaging. I just wondered what you think about it. It's not new anymore, but it's big. It has had
I think it's a double-edged sword. Yes, now every blogger calls themselves a journalist. That's the one side of it. The other side of it is the scope is endless. The amount of people that we can get to is literally is limitless. And when we do look at the demos of who our story, Culver City News stories are being read in Norway. Like, it's crazy. So that's the beautiful side of it, that we can get out to so many people. Or
at least in Sweden.
I think one bigger thing too that's important to note is social media allows us to send out stories in different ways. It doesn't, for a news publication that doesn't do on TV, it doesn't just have to be articles or bust. You can take photos of an event and you can put little captions on them, and you can tell a story. I did that recently at Tristan Isidore's party celebrating his vice presidency. You can have videos, and you can pan around, and you can get these videos out that normally people would have to be in front of a TV to see, and you can get them out very easily accessible in front of everybody's phones. So it is a good way to get people, to see your stuff on in a different medium, and on a more popular medium, more generalized medium. But it also gives you an avenue to be more creative with the way that you're expressing the stories
Right.
and giving people information.
And I know we need to move on, but I just will add that social media, without social media, we couldn't get our stories out to you. I should also put a plug in. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook business page. We're on Instagram. Definitely give us a follow. Join our Westside Voice Facebook group, and you'll be sure to get a link to every one of our articles that way. I would say this though, Disa, and it was wonderful to meet you, by the way, at the mayor's event. That, without technology and without the sort of citizen journalist being out there, Derek Chauvin isn't in prison for killing George Floyd today.
Hmm.
So there is some benefit to the way technology has made real-time coverage accessible to different kinds of people than just the traditional journalists whose news truck wouldn't have known to be there as he was being murdered.
Mhm.
I know we've got a lot of other questions we need to get to.
So, yeah, thanks. If there's time, I want to come back to this whole online business, but let's go to Ted Daly first, a man named after a newspaper.
The Daily News. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yeah.
I have a few things to say. Point one, Jeff, what a terrific idea for a panel. Plaudits to you, Mr. President. Point two, all of you guests, I would like to just thank you on behalf of the framers of our republic, the framers of our Constitution. You read the Federalist Papers, and it's just full of the importance of an informed citizenry. And here we are, you people just bravely trying to make that happen. And I really just thank you for it. Point three, as Disa just brought up, the decline, sorry, let me start over again. The unraveling of the economic model that made a thriving free press work so well for so many decades, as Disa just brought up, has been unraveling because of the internet, and I think a lot of other things in the past several months, several decades, sorry. And I just want to bring to all of your attention, both our guests and all the members, that The Nation magazine, I walked out of the room and tried to find it, but I couldn't find it. But they did a whole special issue about this just in the last 2 or 3 months, about the decline of media and journalism, and how just a good dozen articles about how we can make it thrive. I encourage you all to try to get your hands on that. And a tiny suggestion, which is, I wouldn't be surprised if The Nation magazine would let you guys reprint 2 or 3 of those articles. You just wrote an article about local journalism, and we are a local media outlet. Could we reprint 1 or 2 of these pieces? I'd be astonished if they said no. And finally, one of the best article in there, not surprisingly, was from the great John Nichols, one of the greatest journalists in America today. And he sort of said, here's the ideas that are out there for how to make journalism survive. And one of them is government funding. And that sounds, you can't have that because then the government would control it. No, apparently there's lots of other countries where the government finds a way, because they want journalism to survive and thrive, to help fund tiny local media outlets like yours without exerting any control over them at all.
Well,
And
the BBC is a good example. But
thank you, Brett. Yeah, that is a very good example.
Yeah.
So just to
So
step
I'm
in
just kind
for a
of
moment here.
throwing those ideas out there as part of the larger conversation about how to make you guys survive and thrive.
We do have
Even though you're
municipal
probably too
funding.
busy to think about it because you're trying to survive and thrive. And again, I say thank you
Municipal
for your
funding in
service.
Culver City. It's mandated advertising, and it can only go to a newspaper. It's a California law that goes back to 1943. And this is why the Culver City News gets all of these ads, and they get probably, I know it's not your department, so I'm not going to call you on this, but it's between $75,000 and $80,000 a year in municipal funding because they run those ads.
I should ask
Online is available to get that because that's the law. You have to be on paper and you have to be in print once a week. You also have to have paid subscribers. And I've talked to like 5 city councils over the fact that the news actually doesn't qualify for this. So that money should be going to the LA Times.
Yeah.
Which is the only paper that meets all of those standards. And God
Sorry,
bless.
Judith, is that a Culver City law or a California
If we
law?
lose the biggest newsroom on the West Coast, we're in trouble, friends.
Judith, I'm sorry that I interrupted you. Is that a California law or a Culver City law?
And that's a California law. The state of California requires that cities spend money to support local press by requiring them to advertise certain events. Pick up any copy of the news and you'll see these, these advertisements in the back that says this event is happening. Here's a meeting. This is our, this is our mandated, it's public notification. But again, the news has, just a huge check that they get from the city every single year. And there are no other publications that are ever considered for that. Now, we do have a different city attorney recently. We have moved that, but our former city attorney was very, very conservative in her addressing this issue. I've brought this up to probably 5 or 6 different city councils, and I generally get, a pat on the head. Thanks. So that's where that stands. It's not that there isn't municipal support for journalism. It's that it's very closely categorized and it's very anachronistic.
That needs to be fixed.
On
You
paper.
need and deserve that money as much as these print publications.
Everyone does, but the Crossroads came out in paper for about 6 months, and it was an insane amount of work. And I'm the whole show here. So it was just too much work to do. And then the idea was, if you're not on paper, you don't qualify to get this funding. People said, oh, it's great. You're actually publishing a paper. We're so pleased you're a real newspaper now. The other people said, what are you wasting your time? Everybody reads news online. Nobody picks up a paper anymore. So, we're still, as pointed out, the internet's still new. We're still in transition culturally with all of this. And I know that Culver City has said several times, we can't change the law, but they can change policy. They could do that. So
just to button this, even though
my soapbox.
well, this may be too far in the woods, but I recall that the same was true about DBA announcements, right? Fictitious business names and all of that.
Yes, well, what you have to, what you have to be is adjudicated. That's the legal term. You have to have a certain legal standing. You have to have a paper. You have to have a status on file with the court. All of this. There's been a lot of, backstairs concern as to whether or not the news is correctly adjudicated or if the Observer is correctly adjudicated. That neither one of them actually has all of that paperwork filed, and yet they have received this municipal funding that stands on this filing. So. Investigative reporting, sometimes it goes on for years and you still don't get answers. So, yeah.
I hate to leave at our most obscure point, but there are obviously many big questions that we can all talk about a lot more. And
thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being
here. Is there one more question? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm trying to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I'll accept thanks as well.
So thank you. Really, it was great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice to meet Brett and Judith as well. Good luck to you both. And Christian, thanks for joining. But thanks, Culver City Democrats. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Todd, I'm going to put that information in the chat about Lion.
I copied the link and emailed it to myself.
Got it. Okay.
I'll check it out. Thank you for that.
Sure. They're